On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, we are going to break down the Buffalo Bills 53-man roster, the additions that were made today, and what to expect going forward with our season predictions. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
I am okay here, Greg. This is it. This is the dog days of having your kids at home in the summer, dog days of training camp, off-season conversations. We were getting ready to do real Buffalo Bills game day prep next week. Like I'm preparing for prep now. So this is it, man. We're all buckled in. But in real talk, and sending my kids back to school here, Greg, you know this because you have an older daughter than my kids are. Now I'm clearing house here of kids, and it's a little bittersweet. Like I'm excited. I want to get my kids out of the house right now. I want them gone. But it's a little bittersweet because like I don't get those times when they're like toddlers and stuff back, and now they're going to go off. But so I'm a little torn up about that, but I can't wait for school to start.
Yeah, it is fun when you get to the age where you can actually joke with the kid about how much you want them to leave your house.
Yes.
So my wife and I are there with our daughter, and it's a lot of fun where we like literally go out to the bus that morning to celebrate and high five and like cheer as they leave.
Goodbye.
Yeah, it was fun, which is totally sincere. We really did feel that way. But it's fun when your kid's old enough to be able to joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had a lot of interesting things go on with our Buffalo Bills here the last little bit. We've had some actual transactions. We've had some shockingly kind of helpful additions that a lot of people were calling for, and some different things. But the most important thing, Daryl Fletcher here, the Dick Garage Hive is staying alive. We're very excited. Dick Garage was brought back to the practice squad as a huge addition to the team, and that's my most important takeaway from everything that happened the last 2 days.
We were talking about it offline, and I'm still not convinced his name's not Garage or
something much more. It looks much more exotic.
Something
really
more
does.
French than how we're saying it. But I believe you said you looked it up.
So I will say this. I started saying Garage because it looks like Garage. I went to the University of Florida pronunciation guide and listened to one of their press conferences, and their communications director introduced him as Richard Garage. So
smart
it's Richard
branding
Garage.
by his people. That's all I'm gonna say.
You know, it's just so
I'm not convinced it's his birth name.
There was someone on Twitter who was trying to ask me to lobby Dell and Josh at 26 Shirts to create Dick Garage boxer briefs. And I told Dell we could cure world hunger.
Yeah, a lot of people would be into that. Yeah, for sure. No, it's a fantastic name. I didn't buy it when I saw it on Twitter, and
I think Aaron got too excited about Dick Garage and froze. So we'll dive in to tonight's show. We're going to go through the 53-man roster. We're actually going to share the roster itself to be able to go through each of the different steps that were there. Obviously, there were a couple different transactions, but while Aaron is there, I'm going to jump in and Joe DeRosa's comment here. Help us out. Press the like button. We're going to talk through each of the different transactions and everything that takes place, the moves that went back and forth, and obviously there's a lot of things to be excited about, but there's also some different transactions that we'll have to kind of talk through as they happen. But we'll see. I think maybe Aaron's back. Maybe we'll have to see. Maybe he's in the Dick Garage. I'm not sure. So we'll go through and look at the transactions that took place and all the different things that are there. We had some, I think for the most part, we will have not a lot of surprises. There was one or two that were there. I think there was two that I actually got wrong. I did predict Richard Garage to make the roster. Obviously, we saw the addition at right tackle. We'll talk about that in a minute here. Here, MG saying there, for UF alum here, and it's definitely Garage. So, good on him. It's great branding. We'll talk about the trade that took place yesterday, who made the roster because of that trade, and some of the different pieces that are going to go through there. And Aaron's Wi-Fi is still undefeated. It actually been really good, and he set up a new Wi-Fi extender that had been working really great. And we were talking for like a half hour before the show started, and then out there. Yeah, Ron's right. He's probably sitting there talking, trying to figure out why I can't hear him. So I'll wait to go through a couple of the different pieces here, but some of the smaller transactions, obviously, Steve was talking about it there. I had mentioned how, Reid Ferguson's contract is absolutely perfect for the way that they do transactions the last couple of days. He is a vested veteran, so he has no risk of being claimed or anyone jumping in to grab him. He also knows the Bills are not bringing in like competition as another separate holder to come in. He knows the Bills know other teams aren't looking to change holders at the end of camp right before the season starts to be able to jump into kicking. And he has no dead cap. They re-sign him. I'm actually going to look this year to see when they re-sign him. Do they kick him a little bit of money, like maybe an extra $25,000 or something like that, just as a thank you for being a good sport with the way that they do it? Aaron, we were curious. Did you go check out the Dick Garage? Is that where you went?
No, but honestly, I think a couple of weeks ago, the Spectrum dudes were patrolling the neighborhood, and they came up to me, and I gave them a hard time. I was like, "There's nothing you can say to get me to switch to Spectrum. Just you're gonna want to leave now." And I think that they must have stuffed like toilet paper in my internet wire or something. I'm totally not sure what happened. Everything was working fine. Anyways, no, I didn't do any Dick Garage stuff.
All right, good. So you're back. I was talking about some of the machinations. I didn't go into any transactions yet. I wanted to wait for you. Okay, I was explaining the situation with Reid Ferguson and talking about how going through the different parts of why his contract's so easy, so they can release him for a day. Nobody can claim him. They trust each other that, the Bills aren't going to go get a new long snapper. The Bills trust he's not going to sign somewhere else. He comes back the next day, signs, and they allowed them to move people onto injured reserve. So, do you want to jump right in and we'll start looking at this roster?
Let's just dive right head first.
All right, perfect. So the offense first. We'll bring this up here. No surprise at quarterback, except maybe a minor one, that they moved Matt Barkley to injured reserve beforehand, which means he's now either out for the year or they will reach an injury settlement. But if they reach an injury settlement, he can't re-sign with the Bills for a minimum, I believe it's 6 weeks. So my guess is this means he's simply now a voice in the room for the year and is going to simply remain there and just help and be supportive from there. They did talk about, I left this practice squad spot, Mark Green, but open because Brandon Beane at his press conference today said they were
tomorrow. It's going to happen, right?
Yeah, that they were on the verge. Like he almost wanted to say the name at the press conference. That they were very, very close to making that happen. We'll talk about some of the other transactions, guys that were added who were talked about. I haven't heard any whispers or rumors of who. I know there were guys like Will Greer was released, PJ Walker was released. Matt Corral was released. There's a handful of different guys who I think would be perfectly reasonable practice squad guys. And honestly, guys that probably aren't any different than Kyle Allen.
No, not a whole lot different. And it's going to be just get another body in there. Yeah. I think actually this is probably best case scenario for how it played out with the guys they have in the building this summer, and having Kyle Allen be that number 2. You and I talked offline a little bit. I think the reaction from the Mafia of what backup quarterback play looks like in the preseason was a little bit crazy. Yeah. And then my brother, who's a Bears fan, is talking to me about Kyle Allen being like, hey, you know what? He probably looked more poised than any of the Bears quarterbacks have this preseason. Like, I don't know what you guys are all arguing about.
Yeah, good perspective.
It really is, because backup quarterback play is just not great, right? And so whoever that guy is going to be. But for Matt Barkley, I hope he's okay. I don't hope any injury.
I think
but
Maybe it does mean the UCL injury was a little bit more serious.
More severe. Yeah. But I think this is a good scenario for exactly what they want out of Matt Barkley is him in town and him and his wife as part of this community that they've built, the DNA of this team, but that they don't necessarily need him to be a participant in pads and in that part of the organization. Just be, like you said, a voice in the room and be that family that welcomes in free agents throughout the season. Like that's an unsung thing that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane absolutely love about having him part of this organization. That's worth keeping him around and keeping him on IR.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think it's really well said. The running back room, zero surprises. Obviously, James Cook, Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, Reggie Gilliam saying is the fullback tight end. Ty Johnson was the guy. This was where there was a little mystery. Would it be Darrington Evans? Would it be Jordan Mims? Ty Johnson is the guy they brought back on practice squad, can also do some kick return. With Nyheim Hines on injured reserve, I don't think there was any surprise here either.
No, to your point, it was who was that practice squad spot going to go to? Again, ultimately, I don't think it matters necessarily. I think that's going to probably be a spot that probably rotates throughout the year. You might even see some of those names back in on it, like Brandon Beane was kind of talking about that some of those guys are going to probably find their way back here. But no, in terms of the roster here, that is exactly what I expected it to look like. This going into the season, this one's going to be one of the things, Greg, that next week I really want to explore is how's this usage going to look like in a real game, full snaps with guys healthy. Super intriguing to me because James Cook looked, I've been trying to pump the brakes on that running back one and his usage being like traditional running back one stuff. And the Bills kind of blew that right out of the water and told me to put pump my own brakes because it looked like he was really going to be that running back one. How's that going to look on a real game day? I'm real interested.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where that goes. I'm even curious. I think I know who is going to be the game day active guys. I think all four of them will be, but it's not guaranteed. We had plenty of games in the past where it was only two, where it was, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, and that was it. So we had plenty of those, but we'll see where that goes. I expect all three of them to be active, plus obviously Reggie Gilliam will be. You'll see anywhere where I have blue text, that's going to be a guy who also contributes on special teams. So you'll see that included here. The first one where there was a little bit of mystery, we heard some different rumors about Khalil Shakir and his rib cage, that there was an injury there. He did practice today, so I think that was maybe a little more minor than we expected. They ended up going with 5 receivers on the active roster. It's the least we've ever seen to this point. From a first game. We've seen it plenty of times during the year where there's only 5, but from an opening roster. So obviously Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Deontay Hardy, Khalil Shakir, Trent Sherfield, Justin Shorter made the 53, but then was moved on to injured reserve with a very mysterious hamstring injury. That
hammies are weird. You never know.
You never know. He seemed to play very normal the entire game, and then all of a sudden there's a 4-week hamstring injury. It's very mysterious. We'll see where
they creep up out of nowhere. Man.
I wish him all the best. It seems like it was a very dangerous injury. I wish him all the best. God bless him. He made the roster. We'll see when he's activated off IR when that happens. The one that everybody was anxious about that I even thought was a possibility, especially when I heard about the Justin Shorter IR, was I thought it was possible Andy Isabella would be signed back today. That did not happen. He went to the practice squad, which also means nobody else offered him a contract either. So a minor surprise for practice squad receivers, Marcel Aitman, Brian Thompson, Terrell Shavers, Andy Isabella. I actually think all of them played pretty well, but 4 was a lot. I wasn't expecting that. 4 is a good amount. My guess is that is holding for teams a little bit, especially with Shorter on the IR here. So you're holding some spots maybe for the guys that have the versatility to come in and play teams. I think would have gotten the nod here if I had to guess. But it's a good amount. I think Andy Isabella with Short out definitely made sense for the argument. I'm sure there was conversations about him being on that game or on the 53 here, but it's nice that they are able to get him back and develop him. And you and I sort of pushed back against it a few weeks back. And I think that came off sometimes if you
defend something or push against something, you either become a stand for it or a hater against it. I don't hate Andy Isabella. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to have him be exactly what this ended up working out as, where he was a guy that got cut, cleared, came back. He wasn't offered anything else. He didn't have to go through waivers, right? It was just, he was a free agent, could go.
He was a vested veteran. He did not have to go through. In theory, he could have been the same as the situation with Reid Ferguson, which is, I thought, possible when Justin Shorter was going to IR.
Sure.
But it ended up not being. We'll talk about who opened that position here in a moment.
And practice squad's a great spot for him to be and develop with a great room here. So I think it's a good spot. If he can develop and continue to feed that system, then I think they actually have done a good job this year addressing with, we haven't even gotten to really see how they're going to unlock Deontay Hardy, what they're going to do with Trent Sherfield in this offense. Like, those things, again, back to where we're saying about a full game rep with the running backs. We haven't seen this wide receiver room and how that's going to play out. Having Isabella back there kind of baking as another slot option this year makes it so you don't have to go pull a Cole Beasley off the street in December if somebody gets dinged up, right? So that's a good place to be.
I appreciate Chief listening to instruction. He was told to get in here. I did tell people to get in here. I appreciate him.
Yeah.
Also, Spin here describing the fact that it was reported that Isabella had other practice squad offers.
Sure.
So I thought it was cool that he chose to come back to Buffalo.
Yes.
But no roster options. Obviously, he would have taken a 53-man roster option if provided.
Yes, and also, as noted by many of us, that like the way those posts read are often the agent saying also add this. We turned down a bunch of other offers, by the way. Just so you know.
Correct.
Just so you know.
Every
we took a little
agent,
less here. We only care about winning.
Correct. Every free agent who ever has a release made by the agent lets you know that, we could have got more money elsewhere. We chose to settle for this one.
Yes.
It's funny how that works. The tight end room, again, no surprises. Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, Quentin Morris. I will say I was mildly surprised that Joel Wilson was the practice squad tight end, and no team even added Jay Sternberger to their practice squad.
Yeah.
So I am going to connect the dots. I talked about this beforehand. Jay Sternberger played at 4 different college programs, got into the NFL. The team in the NFL that maintains and re-signs and retains the most draft picks of any team in the NFL is the Green Bay Packers. They let a second-round pick or a day 2 pick walk after only the second year, bounced around to 3 more teams, also went to the USFL, got to the Bills, and whenever we saw him on the field, looked good at football. There is something we don't know about Jay Sternberger and why he can't stick in any locker room he's ever in. I don't understand it, but the fact that he wasn't brought back to the Bills practice squad and wasn't added to any other NFL practice squad, there's got to be something we don't know about Jay Sternberger, because he looks good catching the ball every time I see it. I don't get it.
Maybe he's a ranch guy.
He hates puppies.
Right.
I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what it is, but it's a little weird.
Yeah, you're not wrong, right? Like
PJ here reporting Dean Marlowe to the Chargers. Good for him. I don't get me wrong. I would have happily taken him. On our practice squad, but if he had an opportunity to make a closer to a roster or directly added to a roster, good for him. That's cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. Good for him and good for his family. I think that's hard for them to move away from Buffalo. So continuing for an opportunity in the league, that's cool. On the tight end room, though, one quick thing. You had mentioned the surprise of taking the 5 wide receivers. And I kind of whisper and joke that I get double down Kincaid's a wide receiver. But I do think that him being on this roster and that type of versatility that we talk about when he was drafted hey guys, this is just a pass catcher, like kind of remove that name. And he's been used more in a traditional that 2 tight end way and doing some of the stuff that Dawson Knox can do and some of that stuff, and then being able to mirror a little bit more, but he is going to be a pass catching weapon, right? And so you don't necessarily need to carry 6 wide receivers when you have that type of versatility and you're going to play a bunch more 12 personnel. I think that you can roll out with this think of it as your pass catching weapon group and add in Dawson Knox. I don't think enough people are talking about him. Everybody's just assuming with Kincaid that Dawson Knox is just going to go away. But this room is really good. And I think that the attention to it and the attention that the offense is going to draw to the tight end position allows them to take a little bit less in at wide receiver.
So we'll see where that ends up getting used. And like you said, we did see him with a little bit more traditional tight end usage, but he is absolutely a
weapon, catching weapon.
Yeah, a big slot pass catching guy.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes.
We'll pause for a second because I don't really do much fantasy content. What's the fantasy vibe on Kincaid right now? Where are you guys at with that?
So it depends on the kind of league. So dynasty leagues where you get to draft a guy and keep him for long term, skyrocket, like top 10 pick in rookie dynasty drafts, maybe like the 7th or 8th player out of the draft. For regular leagues, he is now creeping up to be like one of the last starters where he's going 10th, 11th, 12th out of all tight ends. So like people are debating him right after you get past like Pat Freiermuth and David Njoku and Evan Ingram. Once you get past that group, and now it's, hey, do you take him or Tyler Higbee or Gerald Everett, and people are taking Dalton Kincaid equal or ahead of those kind of guys.
Crazy.
Once you get past, it's crazy. And, obviously there's a lot of things where rookie tight ends don't traditionally produce, that early.
I was trying to pump the brakes, dude, but that's why I'm asking. Cause you know me, I was like, I don't know, guys, let's wait, let's see. And my brakes are off. Like, I don't know what can happen. I want to see it.
So, it's continuing to creep up and up. Same thing with James Cook. James Cook's stock continues to creep up and up as the offseason goes, and people see more of, hey, maybe he is like the lead back, and it's not going to be like a 1A, 1B. And don't get me wrong, he's not going to get 100% of anything, but maybe he does get north of 60% of the touches, and that seems possible to me where we're going. So, here MG saying, all tight end 10 to 12 range seems to be about right.
Nice.
The offensive line, not a ton of surprises. We weren't sure. I did predict that David Quessenberry would get released, although I predicted he'd make it to our practice squad, and he ended up signing to the Minnesota Vikings active roster. Good for him. Yep. We also saw on the offensive line, we waived Nick Broker, our 7th-round pick. He and Alex Austin, we'll get to that with the DBs, both got claimed by the Houston Texans. We also saw Zane Anderson get claimed by the Packers. The Bills had 4 guys signed, and then obviously a trade that we'll get to here in a moment. So I think I saw it earlier here, the Adam Schefter reported that since 2018, the Bills have more players who have been claimed on cutdown day than any other team in the NFL. So it's pretty impressive for such a bum of a GM.
Too bad he can't draft, right?
I know. It's so weird that Brandon Beane is such a terrible drafter and has had more players claimed off of his talented roster than any other franchise in the entire league. It's such a weird anomaly.
Panic about his ability to
immediately
formulate a competitive roster.
We should certainly panic immediately. It's a disaster. Let's continue with the disaster of the roster. So obviously Deion Dawkins, Connor McGovern, who again, Connor McGovern returned to practice today. I think it's still within question whether he is ready for week 1, but it clearly does not look like a short-term IR situation. It looks like he's going to be back relatively early in the season, and week 1 now looks possible because he was practicing today. Mitch Morse, Osiris Torrance, Spencer Brown. The ones that we knew were coming, David Edwards and Ryan Bates, were both, I think, absolutely expected. I think as camp went on, Ryan Vandemark became more expected. Cover 1 actually broke the news that Alec Anderson would be making the roster, and we saw him maybe with a little Ryan Bates-ish kind of play where he can be versatile across different ones. And then the real surprise was, would we make an add? The reason I predicted Richard Garage would make the roster was I thought we needed a right tackle. I didn't think it was David Quessenberry. And we end up, using that spot of Justin Shorter, creating the opening for Jermaine Ifedi. So Jermaine Ifedi is he's not Lane Johnson. He's not Trent Williams. This is not some rock solid superstar who's coming in. I don't even expect him to take Spencer Brown's job, but he's probably equal to Spencer Brown, where if he goes out, at least it doesn't get markedly worse. We talk all the time about, don't say it can't get any worse. Of course it can get worse.
Right.
Now we at least rose the floor where if Spencer Brown takes a step forward, it's great. If he doesn't, we have a veteran who is a good pass blocker. He's not a very good run blocker, but is a functional, athletic, long pass blocker, and can at least be there. And hey, Cam, hi Jamestown. I love Jamestown.
Hey, how's it going?
So, what are your thoughts on the offensive line, and then on the addition of Jermaine Ifedi?
Yeah, so while you were talking and reading it off and seeing the names, like I'm having a tough time sort of wrapping my head a little bit around this offensive line and where I'm at, like in a confidence meter. Going into the season, where's my confidence in this unit to hold up? Because I like the group. I like, you're talking about, hey, maybe we're going to miss a little, maybe that first week with Connor McGovern. Like I feel pretty good about David Edwards stepping in and replacing that for a game.
Our interior line, I feel genuinely good.
Yeah, Ryan Bates stepping in moments, a couple weeks there. Like even now,
if something happens to Mitch Morris, I'd be totally fine if Bates had.
I'm comfortable with Ryan Bates taking snaps, or snapping the ball and being that guy. Yeah, no, I feel pretty good here all around. And Ifedi being able to be that sort of swing, Brandon Beane talked about, he's going to primarily be that right tackle backup, but he has some of that ability to swing as well. I feel good about the depth overall. And you talked about Bills losing guys and them signing to other rosters. Quessenberry here doing that. Like I think we hyper focus so much. Joe Marino talks about this a lot. I know you and I have talked to the fan base about this a lot, of hyper focusing on our own team and our own roster and trying to make it perfect. And I think we get lost in that weeds a little bit sometimes on our own stuff and don't look at the rest of the league. And I'm guilty of this too, even with Spencer Brown and my rush to get him developed to adequate level right tackle. Like when I pause and look back at the league and see who the right tackles are in the situation league wide, like it's not pretty. And so I need to pump my own expectations of these guys. And so compared to the league, I think this is a deep group. I think that this is a group that has a good amount of experience in some big games. You got Dawkins, Morse, and now you're bringing in a rookie like Torrance. Like I like the overall makeup of the group. For me, it just hinges on Spencer Brown in that right tackle position. Like, I don't know if I feel good about what you said in saying the drop off between him and Ifedi isn't that big. Like that floor is like, is that a good thing about, like, how does
that is not a compliment. That is not a compliment to Jermaine Ifedi. Unfortunately, that is simply reality. So just as an example, Jermaine Ifedi, has had multiple seasons with over 1,000 snaps and, 2 sacks given up or 25 pressures allowed, 98% pass blocking efficiency. That's better than we've seen from Spencer Brown. So he is a better pass blocker than Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown is a better run blocker than Jermaine Ifedi, and they are both bottom third, bottom 5 starting right tackles in the NFL. They're both pretty good as a backup. You don't really want them to be a starter. Now, of course, Spencer Brown has more potential than that. There's more that he could do. But Jermaine Ifedi is 6'5", 338 with 34.5-inch arms. He's a huge human. He's just a big dude who's hard to get around. That is helpful, and he moves his feet reasonably well. He oddly doesn't use that huge size as well in run blocking. You would think that he'd be a little bit better run blocker of where that is, but
who cares about run blocking, right? Like,
correct. I care way more about pass blocking than I do run blocking.
Protect Josh Allen.
So he's also had several seasons where he's played through some different kinds of injuries and different things there. So again, we don't have a good right tackle on this roster. Ryan Vandermark was worse than both of them when he tried to play right tackle. Alec Anderson was worse than all 3 of them when he got to play right tackle. So, Alec Anderson was the worst at right tackle. Ryan Vandermark was slightly better, but worse than those 2. Spencer Brown's been concerning, but is big and athletic. Jermaine Ifedi is experienced, moves his feet, and is big and functional, and has had the best pass blocking season of any of those guys, of someone at right tackle. And no matter what, it's going to be a concern all year long. We're going to hope that it stays reasonable. We're going to hope that Spencer Brown plays well and plays up to his athletic potential and up to his potential. But at least now, Jermaine Ifedi's better than the guys we had previously. He's better than David Quessenberry, and he's better than the young guys who are at right tackle. So we'll hope he doesn't need to play and that Spencer Brown plays well. If Spencer Brown goes out, Ifedi's better than what we had, and sadly, that's as good as we're going to get right now this late into the season.
So we didn't talk about this ahead of time.
Yes, we should take right tackle first pick in the draft next year.
He's just scouting now.
I'm not even joking. No, that's serious. We should definitely take right tackle first round next year.
But going into this point, heading into next week where we start to prepare for the Jets, what is your confidence level in this particular unit? We spent so much time in the offseason talking about upgrading this unit. They did in a lot of ways on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like Josh Allen is locked down Fort Knox. Obviously 1 is you're just can't, this is never going to work. Where are you at? 1 to 10 confidence level going in? Because I want to revisit it in a few weeks.
Yeah. So 1, I think just like your comments about your Bears fan friend and the backup quarterback, we also have to remember Spencer Brown was pretty bad all of last season, and Josh Allen was nearly an MVP, and we scored the second most points in the NFL. Yep. So, we're probably going to survive. I think that it's functional. I would say the other 4 spots and the rest of our depth. Ryan Vandermark actually looked pretty good at left tackle. I wish he could play that well at right tackle. I think our interior is good. I think our interior is one of the better interiors in the league, to be honest. I think we're above average on our interior offensive line, especially our top 6. All 6 guys are good. So I would put everybody else, I feel like a 7. I think we're pretty good. And then our right tackle situation, I'm a 2 or a 3, but we also survived that last year. So I think Josh Allen can survive it again, and I'm willing to say it could produce better than a 2 or a 3 out of 10 because of Dawson Knox and because of our 12 personnel, and that every right tackle, even bad ones, perform better when you bolt on a decent blocking tight end that the defensive end doesn't know whether he's going to help or go out. So he has to bump out a gap or he has to prepare to get chipped. And it's just that one more thing that's going to help Spencer Brown be prepared on, say, 60. I'm going to predict that there's an awful lot of snaps where Dawson Knox lines up next to Spencer Brown when he does have his hand in the dirt. So maybe 60 or 70% of the snaps that are out there in pass blocking, he's going to have Dawson Knox there as at least a starting point. And we saw, I know Eric showed the one snap, Dawson Knox destroyed the one defensive end for the Bears on a chip block where he didn't know it was coming, and he decleated him, took him completely off his feet. That can help Spencer Brown when Dawson Knox does that. So I don't feel confident, but I also think it's probably less of a disaster is what everyone thinks, because Spencer Brown was bad all last year and we still scored a bajillion points.
Yeah, that's true. Some of the game. So what made me really scream from the top of the mountains, protect Josh Allen, is watching back that Jets game where Josh Allen got hurt. It's watching back the Bengals game where just Josh Allen's just running for his life. And there was, to your point, 80% of the time it was fine because Josh Allen just makes the play, and Josh Allen can make things happen and get the ball to Diggs.
The first 6 games of the year, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And all Spencer Brown all started all 6 of those too.
No, for sure. But those types of games, seeing him, my concern with him is that the size, his size is something that plays against him, and I haven't seen him be able to leverage it in the way that makes sense, where he can still be tall and still be big and not get out leveraged by defensive ends all the time. And that's going to be hard. But to your point, I think he's going to get a lot of help. Yes. Overall,
and not having 2 bad spots is, I think, a sneaky bigger help than what people think. Having 1 concerning spot is actually, it sounds like, it's 2 versus 1, it's only half. It's actually a much bigger deal than that, because now you can address all of the shifting, where you're directing the protection, who you give the extra help to.
Sure.
It's more than that, where you're not having to worry about it from both directions.
I am trying to also pump my own brakes on O'Cyrus Torrence just a little bit, because I think he's going to be good, but he's a rookie. He's going to have some rookie stuff that happens. And
he's going to be a better run blocker than pass blocker for sure.
For sure. And I think that teams, my biggest concern, my confidence level, just to point out, I think I'm at a 6.5 right now heading into the season. I like this group pretty much. This side of the line scares me a little bit against better defensive coordinators with good defensive lines, which we're going to face stunts games that they're going to play with the 2 of them. How are those guys going to handle it? Because we don't see a ton of it in the preseason. You don't see a lot of that type of scheming up people attacking Spencer Brown. So I'm interested to see how Cromer protects that side of the line and puts those guys in position. I do believe in them though, and that's why I wanted to put it at 7. I'm right at like a 6.5, 7 confidence level in that group, and I think that's a good place to be.
Yeah. I think again, whether we're taking advantage of it or benefiting from it, or risking playing with fire, whatever you want to call it, we do have Josh Allen. We do. Like, it's just reality. He's going to make every offensive line look better in the same way. So not in the same way. I was saying it wrong. In a different way, but similarly to how Peyton Manning hid some horrendous Indianapolis Colts offensive lines, but he was so good at getting the ball out fast, it didn't matter. You couldn't get to him, and he did it there. So some of the things, Josh Allen's going to make some amazing plays. He's just going to. Like, that thing's going to happen. Now, I think the injury
a good run game will help it too.
Oh, yeah. Well, having actual play-action threat, the reason that 12 personnel is such a high-efficiency passing formation is because you get some linebackers on the field, and you get teams nervous about whether you're going to run or pass. Imagine if Josh Allen actually has his best run game as a compliment in his career. I think it's feasible that could happen. So we'll see where that goes. Any other thoughts on the offense before we flip to the defensive side?
Lots of points. Go ahead.
Score points. I'm a big fan of points. I love points.
Yeah. No, I do think I think people forget because we got left with the bad taste of that Bengals game in our mouth. Just like how good, and they're returning most of it, and I think they fixed a lot of the things that we really saw as the biggest problems. And like you said, they got through with Spencer Brown, but they fixed Roger Saffold, right? So listen back to Brett Coleman. If anyone, I encourage people to go listen to that one where he did the whole AFC East preview, and he did the Buffalo Bills. Listen to the way those guys talk about how analytically, historically dominant this Buffalo Bills offense was, and how they just blew through really awesome defenses last year. Like, I just think we forget because of the bad taste that was left in our mouths. Like, I do think they're going to come out, and I think they're going to establish that again right away. You heard Josh Allen talking about it on McAfee. Like, he's never felt more in sync in this offense. Feels like he can do it with his eyes closed now. Like, he knows this offense better than he ever has. I don't think that's just PR BS. Like, I really think, you're this far into the offense, he's got it figured out. So points is, I joke, they're going to put up a lot of points. This could get a lot of fun again.
Yeah. So I'll give a quick plug. Tomorrow, you guys are going to see a premiere of an interview that I got to do earlier today. Unfortunately, Aaron wasn't available, and Aaron Schatz, who is the founder of Football Outsiders and the creator of DVOA, he has now left Football Outsiders and is at FTN Fantasy. He wasn't available tonight, and Aaron wasn't available earlier, so I knocked out a quick interview with him this afternoon. It's going to run under the Greg Tompsett Sports Show tomorrow at 5 o'clock. He has a little snippet in there where he talks about in their metrics, where they measure the combination of added talent and draft free agency addition and the return of injured players. They have the Bills the most improved team in the NFL, the most added benefit of
you won't
any
see that
team
on
in the
Good
NFL.
Morning Football.
And it was just, so we talked about it, obviously, of like the narrative that like everybody else got better and the Bills were down here. He's like, it's really funny. We actually have the Bills as the most improved team in the league, and they were already really good, which is why they have them predicted to finish as the number 1 DVOA team in the league. Yep. All right. Switch it. So check that out tomorrow, 5 o'clock. You can check it out on the Greg Tompsett Sports Show. It was a very good discussion.
What a lucky
Aaron's
day
always
for you.
good. It was fun.
Aarons,
got to talk to
Aarons
2 Aarons. It was great. One much more handsome than the other.
I know he is, yeah.
All right, so switching to the defensive side of the ball here. Again, not a ton of surprises.
This is where the only surprise came to me.
Correct.
Really.
We traded Boogie Basham.
Yeah.
So, woo! I was so excited. I've said it repeatedly. It's not Boogie Basham's fault that he's not Creed Humphrey. He didn't do that. He did not choose to be drafted. He was a perfectly good football player. He's a bit of a tweener. I don't know if he's ever going to be big enough to be a 3-tech or fast enough to be a defensive end. Whatever. It's not his fault that the guy that we did all the work on and made so much sense to take wasn't taken there. But I could never undo it in my mind. I could never not blame him. I could never turn it off to hold him to the standard that wasn't his fault because he didn't choose to be taken ahead of the other guy that so many people wanted. I'm happy it's a clean slate. And to be honest, the biggest benefactor was Kingsley Jonathan now made this roster, and he looked great. He deserved it. He earned that roster spot. And to have still 10 defensive linemen, we knew the tackles were a lock, especially Tim Settle looking healthy. But Leonard Floyd, Shaq Lawson, Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, there was maybe a little bit of curiosity with Shaq Lawson. Some people mentioned maybe AJ Epinesa could be traded instead of Basham, whoever got the bigger return. But Kingsley Jonathan making it, shout out to him, Syracuse grad, someone who is really kind of grinded to get himself to that spot. A lot of, got claimed last year in Chicago's practice squad. We claimed him back on our practice squad. Really happy for him to make it. And someone who showed some legitimate, flashes as a pass rusher.
Yeah, no, for sure. I sneaky wanted him to find his way back last year. And then luckily he did find his way back throughout the season. And Brandon Beane spoke on that, saying that he didn't want to lose him. And these are those tough decisions that they make. And sometimes, we give fans a hard time of freaking out about losing guys on the practice squad, but Brandon Beane does, he freaks out about losing those guys. And for them to get him back and develop him, what is it? Bills traded.
Alex Austin and Nick Broker for Christian Kirksey. Beane is a wizard. That was really good. But
yeah, thanks, Keith.
Keith, hope everything's going great with your family, man.
Yeah,
Thinking about you.
For real, man.
Hope everything's going as well as it can.
Yeah, absolutely. And nothing against Boogie. I didn't hold Creed Humphrey against
You were
Boogie
a much more reasonable adult than I was.
at all. I tried to be. This is a story really of how the NFL works. And I think we as fans sort of forget when they say when you get picked, and that kind of stops right there. And we get so caught up, Kyrie Elam, we get so caught up on where he was picked. But it doesn't really matter when you come into this league. Where Boogie Basham was picked didn't matter. There was a guy who financially made more sense and on the field was outplaying him. And there's a spot for you if you can do that, because the team wants to be able to move on from that type of asset that isn't panning out and give it to somebody like Kingsley Jonathan. And we give Beane a hard time about the Boogie Bashams, but then we also should praise him about the Kingsley Jonathans that are you're able to find this guy, develop him, put him into a position where you can put him on a 53-man roster. If you're going to have those conversations, it has to go all the way. And this roster is a deep roster with a guy now who has earned his way onto this roster through your system.
Yeah, what if one of the other 31 franchises took Matt Milano in the first 161 picks?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, you could undo that all the time. What if one of the other 31 rosters took Taron Johnson in one of the first 120 picks of the draft? Right. He's had way more hits than misses. Yes, is it frustrating that many of the misses seem to be some earlier picks? Sure, but he's had more hits than misses, and he's still one of the better GMs in the league.
Yep. And to his point, speaking of this, the part of the roster, when you're building out the roster, where they were when they drafted those two guys, it still didn't make sense to a lot of us in the part of the draft to do that back to back. But what made sense was you didn't have anything going forward, right? It was like Jerry Hughes on his final year, Mario Addison, like you had nothing going forward, and you didn't know you were going to sign Von Miller and get Von Miller on this team.
Correct.
You didn't know you were going to end up getting Leonard Floyd late in his career. You didn't know you were going to end up falling into Greg Rousseau, like how that room has now fallen together and guys who have stepped up. Like that's the part of being a GM you wish you had. Be able to look ahead and how that room is going to shape up. He didn't know that. And so he still did a good job stacking that room. But now people want to just focus on, he did terrible managing this one asset.
Yeah. Pete's comment almost made me laugh out loud there, that we're all going to forget about Creed Humphrey when that 6th round pick in 2025 comes.
Right. He's going to package that and trade it up again next year. Move up in the first round into the 20s. Yeah.
So the next group was, besides right tackle, I think one of the most openly debated positions and a little bit of a surprise. So obviously, I think if you told me going into the day that we were going to IR Balen Spector, keep Bernard, Milano, Williams, Dodson, Medikevich, and then one of the released linebackers as a veteran would be brought back onto the practice squad, I would have said, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, it's going to be AJ Klein. Instead, they reached agreement with Christian Kirksey, who I'm going to say is probably a little better at middle linebacker than Ifedi is at right tackle. Again, he is not a superstar. He is not going to come in and save the day, but he's pretty good and actually had a very nice season for Houston last year. Kind of got caught up in one of those things where it's a new coaching scheme, a new kind of scouting department, a new regime there. was only a $1 million dead cap hit for them to save $6.5 million, but he was a $7.5 million linebacker.
Yeah.
And got released and all of a sudden was available. And as a guy that I don't know that he's going to be able to come in and start week 1, but I know Eric and several others feel like he's a guy who may be able to come in here and by week 2 or week 3, not only might be active and on the game day roster, but may be our starting middle linebacker and might be the Band-Aid we need to get through this season. He is a very experienced veteran, a great communicator in getting people into the right positions around the field, is a good run defender and a, solid, smart pass defender. He's not some sideline to sideline demon, but he is a lot more experienced than the guys we have and is a better coverage guy than a Terrell Dodson or an AJ Klein. He might be kind of the lesser of evils and just, hey, he has less warts and less bad spots than everybody else, so he's going to be doable. I don't think it's crazy that he could be the middle linebacker for us down the stretch.
I think he's right now today he's the best option at that spot on this team, and it's nothing against the other guys. They're just they're unproven. This is a conversation we have a lot in the cornerback room, right? This conversation that's around Elon
potential versus reality
right now. Yeah. And trust and coaches and how they trust you, what you've done in this league versus what you haven't. And a lot of the times, we get caught up on draft type and measurables and traits, but coaches get caught up on what they see on film and what they've seen in the league and what they can trust. And a sneaky part of this Kirksey thing is Al Holcomb being a part of this staff and having worked with Kirksey here in the past in Cleveland and knowing like this guy can run a defense. And then that was my biggest concern, was all the talk about who gets the green sticker, who's getting the mic and the helmet, who's going to run this defense, because Sean McDermott sort of, when asked about having a safety do it, he kind of didn't love that idea, squirmed away from the, it's really the responsibility.
Yeah, said he'd be open to it, but his preference would be it was the middle linebacker.
Yeah, and now you bring in a guy that's had it for years. He knows how to call a defense. He's called maybe not a Sean McDermott version of this type of defense, but the tree within the tree of the defense.
With Al Holcomb, played under which is Al Holcomb ran the exact same system.
That's what,
in Cleveland.
Yep.
So he has experience calling this defense.
Correct. A version of it for sure.
Correct.
He
correct.
will, and
language. I mean, using the language.
Yeah, that's going to matter to these guys a ton going into this. So I think it might be a lot for them to onboard him in time. I don't know if it'll be for week 1, but I do think it'll be early on, and he'll just take the job and run with it as long as he stays healthy. This is a journeyman linebacker. It's a great move for a team in need this time of year. Like you said, he's not going to come in and shock the world with his play, but I think he can cover up a lot of the warts that we would have had if it wasn't AJ Klein, right? Like that inability to cover. I trusted AJ Klein to call the defense, get people in position, know what he's supposed to do. He's like an old dog on the port. Like he cannot even do the things he used to, and he was never the athletic type of freak. So I don't know that he's going to be the type of guy that you're going to roll a whole season with. I do think Kirksey can get you through at an adequate level, and you know how much I love adequate football players.
Absolutely. He's so Kirksey is a better run defender than Bernard, Dorian Williams, or Spector. He's a better pass defender than Terrell Dodson or AJ Klein. He is that middle of the road guy that we need to get us through here. And again, had some pretty significant flashes last year. 124 tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks. Like he had a productive year in Houston and simply got caught up in a new regime coming in, bringing their own guys and being expensive on a rebuilding roster.
Yeah, and the Texans are a tire fire of a organization until that turns around. But a big sneaky thing about this is, again, we get caught up on what we saw from draft prospects and what we project them to be and their traits and stuff like that. Processing is real at the NFL level. And what Kirksey lacks in athleticism to these other guys is going to make up for in processing and knowing where to be. And you save it in him just even knowing where to align defensive linemen to get into position. Like those, having him on the field versus those other guys that don't have the experience is going to be a net positive. It's going to be net gains in DVOA, even if his play isn't to that Tremaine Edmonds adequate type of lineup.
Everyone wants to assume that, if we just played Dorian Williams more, he would have figured it out.
No.
Says who? Like what? That's not how it works. Like Patrick Queen played a significant amount of time and was a disaster.
It was not good.
And then all of a sudden, they plug in Roquan Smith to take all of that off of his plate and to do all of the alignment, get everybody in the right position, decipher what the offense is doing, make all the adjustments and calls, let Patrick Queen move over and see ball, get ball, and he does great. That's Dorian Williams. Like, Dorian Williams is not all of a sudden like, no, if we just gave him a couple more weeks and a couple more reps, he would have figured it out and been able to decipher NFL offenses and make all the checks at the line and get everybody else into the right positions. He just needed a couple more weeks to figure that out. No, he didn't. Now, maybe someday he can figure that out, but they pulled the plug on him doing that immediately when they figured out, oh, he's just completely swimming here. He's not remotely ready for this. We need to let him just go over there, be a special teams linebacker, be a backup outside linebacker. You know, Tremaine Edmonds was an outside linebacker. They brought him in initially. They figured out, oh, this guy can do it. He's got it upstairs. He's ready to run with it. That doesn't mean Dorian Williams can't learn that, but he's not ready to do it. He's not ready to do that. They didn't pull the plug on anything. He wasn't going to be able to do that this season.
Yeah. I do think they should start doing that though, like now. I do think the
learning.
Earlier they start working on that, the better for us.
Sure. Learning it is
because
beneficial.
Kirksey's not going to be you still have that. This is going to be a problem again next year until this is, you said it best. This is very much just a Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid. Yeah. If we were the Arizona Cardinals, sure, start Dorian Williams. What's the worst that could happen? We're going to lose some more games that we weren't going to win anyways. Sure. If it was the Houston Texans, they would have kept Dorian Williams, let him continue to be the starter, and figured it out later. Because it doesn't matter if he gets gashed and gets people into the wrong position and they give up free touchdowns. They're going to lose anyways.
How about
you can't do that on a roster like this.
Sarah here, I agree. I don't want to pile on a guy, but like,
so verbally, if I say his name out loud, can he search?
I think
for
you
that
have to say
and
it
find
3 times in a row.
If I say it three times, he will
just
find
say
it.
Once, I think you're going to be okay. Is he just on the roster because Balen Spector is doing the IR thing? Like he feels for sure kind of pointless to me at this point.
So obviously you and I both spend a fair amount of time defending and explaining and justifying things Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott do because we both agree with 90% of what they do. Not everything, but 90%. By far one of the most head-scratching decisions I've seen Brandon Beane make. Brandon Beane not only paid Terrell Dodson more than Damian Harris, Taylor Rapp, David Edwards, multiple other like legitimately contributing players, he guaranteed his contract.
Yeah.
Who were we competing against? Who were we competing against that was guaranteeing Terrell Dodson money that we couldn't, like, don't get me wrong, Terrell Dodson deserved to come and compete for a roster spot, and maybe he would have made it. Maybe he would have made it anyways and still would have been the 6th linebacker here because he does play some special teams and he could be a backup, and he, did fill in when Tremaine Edmonds went out last year, whatever. I cannot get my head around why he guaranteed. So the reason he didn't get cut is
because he's guaranteed. Yeah.
We would have paid him either way. We needed that backup, but we guaranteed Terrell Dodson $2.1 million. That was more than we paid Taylor Rapp, Damian Harris. It just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I don't understand what it was.
Hey, we all have misses.
I was kind of hoping that Dodson would get released today, and maybe if Balen Spector did, I think Balen Spector had I don't want to. It's not appropriate.
A Justin Shorter injury.
Correct. I don't want. That is not appropriate for me to assume that Justin Shorter's injury is not legitimate. It very well could be. It could have just not been seen on film.
He might. Yeah. He might be having trouble reclining on the couch then.
It's not appropriate.
No, for real. Hamstring injuries suck. I hope he's not hurt.
Correct. Balen Spector legitimately was hurt and looked like he was going to miss weeks of time.
Right.
If that hadn't have happened, I think it's possible that Dodson did get released. I think it's possible
guaranteed
that he
money,
could get released.
We just talked about it earlier offline. We haven't talked about Neil making it, but that type of money is like I can walk away from that type of guaranteed money if he's not in. Like he, to me, proved this offseason that he doesn't even fit the style of what you're trying to accomplish as a defense.
He's not better than AJ Klein. He's just a come forward old school thumper. He's a Reggie Ragland. He would have got so picked on every single game. If you tried to put him out there, he would have got isolated and picked on in coverage over and over and over again until you took him off the field.
Crazy. So anyways,
and I will say as we combine here, obviously, again, no surprises. We knew, although we did know who was going to start, we knew that the guys like Trey White, Taron Johnson, Dane Jackson, Christian Benford, Kyer Elam, and Saran Neal were all going to make it. I know some people question Saran Neal. He actually looked better at backup slot corner this year than we've seen in years past. I kind of hope we don't need to see it, but he looked okay. He looked functional, and he's still a very good gunner and very good special teams player. And we still do need a gunner to cover on punts. Punts are not going anywhere in the NFL. You still need it, and they're still going to kick off and have 30 to 35% of returns. You still need guys to do that, and he's very, very good at that job.
I will go a step further and totally take the brakes off. He's an ace in the league. Yeah. I think he's one of those top guys that other teams look at special teams and show, hey, look at how this guy
Taub
does it.
is one of the best special teams coaches in the league from Kansas City. Everybody shows that picture of him triple teaming Saran Neal with 3 guys blocking him just to try to get a return in that game.
Yeah, I think anyone that was talking about cutting him, that was my big thing. Is like, dude, we know Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott love special teams. That a lot of they're going to talk all these guys up about special teams. Saran Neal to them is on another level of special teams play than the rest of these guys you've got marked in blue. He is their Slater.
Yes,
for what the Patriots was for years, where he doesn't really play that position. He might have to in a pinch sometime. You don't want him to, but he's going to contribute on special teams in an elite way. And so just want to give him his props there because he does deserve it. And it's a great deal for the Bills that they got in there with Saran Neal for that type of role. But I love this freaking room.
Yeah.
Dude.
Like the fact that I know people aren't excited about what we've seen and that Kyer Elam didn't run away with it. He still played pretty good. The fact that he's like our 5th best cornerback is awesome. It's fantastic. The fact that Christian Benford and Dane Jackson have played even better than him, and he did not run away with it. It's okay to be disappointed with Kyer Elam. He's still been pretty good, and the fact that we have 5 cornerbacks all playing at his level or above is a great problem in the NFL.
Yeah, we've never been this flush in the room as a whole, even in the safety room. Like right now, I feel really good going into this season that we can handle a ding here and there. As long as it doesn't get totally crazy where it flies off the rails with injuries. Like you can rotate these guys in and out for games. And I think that you're going to be able to see really high quality play from all these guys. To your point, Kyer Elam, like him being a really solid option for you guys, he's going to play this year. Like I guarantee you he's going to get a number of snaps. They're going to rotate these guys. I don't care what Sean McDermott says. They're not going to come out and tell you how they're going to do it, but there's going to be a rotation of these cornerbacks all year. Kyer Elam's going to find his way onto the field. And so this is a really good time for John Butler. He's got a lot of different tools at his disposal. I'm coming along to your, seeing more Taylor Rapp and seeing more guys on the field, seeing more of these DBs on the field, because I think you just have too much guys to not super thick dime. Just get thick and go down. No. But you do. It's getting to the point where you have it's leaking out of talent where it's hard to not get Taylor Rapp on the field, right? Like it's hard to not put the athleticism of a Saran Neal out on the field for matchups if he's playing well in coverage.
So I had saved it until we got to this point. So now obviously keeping 5 safeties, Cam Lewis is going to be a core special teamer. DeMar Hamlin will be a special teamer. Thank God we have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer back. Taylor Rapp is going to be a part of this defense. And I had kind of pitched some of the platooning things before, and it wasn't always realistic because platoons don't work when you can get caught by the other team. Platoons work when the other team is in the obvious situation and you just get to substitute. Christian Kirksey allows us to do that because Christian Kirksey can be the combination where I was saying before, well, if it's rundowns and it's goal line and it's short yardage or obvious run, I wouldn't mind if it was Klein or Dotson, but first and second down, regular yardage, it can be Terrell Bernard. And then on 3rd and long, it could be Taylor Rapp. Well, now it can just be Christian Kirksey and Taylor Rapp. And you can play Christian Kirksey 80% of the snaps, and he can be there on most normal downs. He could be there in short yardage. He could be there in rundowns. He could be there on 1st and 10 and 2nd and 7, and it's totally normal. And on all obvious passing downs, just bring in Taylor Rapp. Because if you're going to try to hand it off on 3rd and 11, God bless you. Like, go right ahead. but you can now actually functionally platoon because we will have the control of when to do it. And I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know where that percentage is, but I feel confident it's not going to be the 0% dime snaps we had before. And every time I think about this, that number creeps up more and more. And I think we're getting to where 20% dime is not out of the question, and that we could see Taylor Rapp deployed a very reasonable amount, besides being just the obvious backup to Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. I think Taylor Rapp might be out there for 20% of snaps anyways, where it's Matt Milano, Taron Johnson on one side, Taylor Rapp on the other. Come on, we're going to send our 4 guys at you. Give it your best shot.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what their confidence level in Neal being mixed into that role is, because I do think the team likes him a lot.
Yeah. So real quick, Pete here asking, if we do a thick dime, Rapp would come on the field wearing the green dot to replace the mic. I don't think we've heard them practicing that, though. So the NFL allows 3 defenders to have the green dot set up and communication set up in their helmet. You're only allowed to have 1 on the field working at a time, the same way that offensive linemen have to come in and declare eligible when they're a 6th offensive lineman. The defender who is switching the green dot has to declare eligible as the green dot defender, which there are guys up in the booth who automatically shut it off at 15 seconds left on the play clock for both offense and defense. They also control who has it, just like when a backup quarterback comes in the game, where they can switch it so that the backup quarterback now has access to the communication. When they switch on defense, you're allowed to do that. So last year, when Tremaine Edmonds got hurt during the game and Terrell Dotson came in, they just switched the green dot working. They would do the same thing here, where it probably would be, now I don't know if Matt Milano would be the guy who they'd switch it to, or if they would have Taylor Rapp do it, or Micah Hyde. I'm not sure who, but on plays where Christian Kirksey or Terrell Bernard would come off the field, they would simply turn on the green dot access to the other defender's helmet, and they can have 3 of those. Only 1 can work at a time. So that they have options for it, but I don't know. They've obviously been practicing it and doing what they're going to do. We just don't know about it yet and who has access to what.
That's such a silly. They just put mics in everybody's helmets. And
I do. There is something that I'm curious if in the future they do that, to where in college it would make a ton of sense. They just hold up the sign. Yeah. Imagine if you could just run no huddle all the time, and the coach is in everybody's ear, just saying like, "Hey, here's the play," and you just line up and go.
Or even just by units
at some point. Yeah,
like Eric Washington's in the D line here.
It's like, hey, correct. Yeah, that just their guy can do it. We'll see where it goes. Yeah,
it's silly to have this.
Steve here. Do those green dots rules apply in Foxborough? Yeah, magically. Some of the
if you can get a signal, get a signal of their.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
So again, I do think this defense is deeper and more dangerous than people realize. We don't even have Von Miller. When Von Miller comes back, I know somebody asked in the chat here, if he comes back and there are obviously most NFL seasons there are injuries and someone else will be on short-term IR and we would bump them to short-term IR. If everyone's healthy, which would be great, and Von Miller's ready to come back, I'm torn on whether it's just plain and simple, it's Kingsley Jonathan, or if there's a chance that it would be Shaq Lawson, because Kingsley Jonathan would be exposed to waivers and someone could claim him. Shaq Lawson could just be bumped down and they could keep him. And just, if unless somebody else was going to sign him, he could just bounce back and forth from practice squad. So I don't know. And one other added bonus, once Shaq Lawson makes the week 1 roster, his salary is guaranteed.
Right.
He's not losing any money, whether he's on the 53 or the practice squad. So there's a piece of me that thinks the sneaky play, because Shaq Lawson matters a lot more before Von Miller, because Shaq Lawson and Leonard Floyd are a perfect pairing. Shaq Lawson on rundowns, Leonard Floyd on pass downs. They can both play 50-50 for that side of the defense. Gregory Rousseau can do both, but A.J. Epinesa can give him a rest. Kingsley Jonathan can come in on obvious passing downs when Gregory Rousseau kicks in to 3-tech, whatever it might be. So it makes a lot of sense. When Von Miller comes back, you don't really need Shaq Lawson
Yeah,
anymore.
well, because Leonard Floyd's a great run defender.
Yeah,
Like,
so you don't really need
does
it
a lot of that.
in that sense. Like you can just matter of fact, when Von Miller comes back, I'm fine if they just give Gregory Rousseau, Von Miller, and Leonard Floyd 65% of snaps each, and those three are just on the field at all times.
Yeah.
So I think it's very logical that they would simply release Kingsley Jonathan and roll the dice. He doesn't get claimed. I think there's a 4D chess sneaky arbitrage answer where it's smarter to cut Shaq Lawson because you already paid him the money and he'd be cool with it because he already got the money, and you could just use practice squad elevations to bring him back, or he'd obviously come back if somebody got hurt.
Yeah, totally. And we know Shaq Lawson wants to be here. I think he's at the point
I think he might actually be okay with it.
Yeah, I think the money's guaranteed. Yeah. So he's getting paid the same whether he's on the active roster or he's on the practice squad. He's going to get his money this year. He's going to be part of this roster as they do what they're set out to do. He's going to be around these teammates. So I think it makes sense for him. Also, we've seen him be a free agent. We know what the market looks like for Shaq Lawson. Like, there's probably not a much incentive for him to go looking somewhere else midseason unless some crazy injuries happen and something happens for him. But that can happen for him on the practice squad, right? Like, he can go elsewhere while being on the Bills practice squad if an opportunity comes up for him. But I do think that is a 4D chess type move that makes sense. Either if he exposes Kingsley Jonathan again during the season, I do think there's a good chance that he gets taken in the waiver process. And the way Brandon Beane was talking about it this afternoon in his press conference, I don't think he wants to do that again. I think he'd like to keep this guy in the building and keep developing him as part of this group.
Yep. And Daryl here bringing up the Eagles defense was incredible last year with so-so linebackers. They did it with a strong front that came in waves and got a bunch of pressure and good DBs. And that's what the Bills have. The Bills have a strong front that comes to you in waves and good DBs and
an all-pro linebacker.
And Matt Milano's better than any linebacker. The Eagles
this is what I keep saying too. Like, if Von Miller's not there
half
yet,
our linebackers are all pros.
Right. Von Miller's not back yet, but every level of this defense has all pros. Every level of this defense has big time game experience. Like, again, this is similar to how we talk about the offense. This defense didn't show up in that Bengals game, didn't show up in the postseason. It started to tail off in the end. This has been over the last few years with a lot of these players, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Now you're adding bigger bodies. So when Daquan Jones goes out like he did in the Bengals game, you're not going to have the drop off you did. You're going to have some interior help there. You have more years experience with Christian Benford. You've got Trey White fully recovered coming back. Von Miller sounds like he was a real decision as to whether or not to put him on the PUP. So we're itching to get back here. This is a very good defense. And again, I don't know what to expect from Sean McDermott. I know Eric is taking guesses at what that Sean McDermott sort of sprinkle to this defense is going to look like. You've talked about some of the possibilities.
We do know some of the stuff he did in Philly and Carolina, but we don't know, is it going to be the exact same? And again, that setup was super vanilla and playing on first and second down, and then batshit crazy on third down, coming from everywhere, all over the place. You had no idea what was happening. So I kind of hope that's what we see, but we'll see if that actually applies here.
That was my our friend Alex Brasky had asked me a question. He's looking for questions for an article he was doing for the season. He probably hit you up. My thing to him, I'll get shocker here. I'm going to spoiler alert him here. Was my big thing is how is that Leslie Frazier and Tremaine Edmonds were lightning rods for blame in this organization. How is that going to change here going into this year is the biggest story that we just haven't heard enough about because we don't know how it's going to look, right? But they're both gone. And so who are we going to point the finger at if this defense does exactly what people have said it's going to, do? It's going to be Sean McDermott. So it's a huge season. It's a huge storyline. And we're not hearing a lot about it because you don't know how it's going to play out till it presents itself here this season. That's probably the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah. Another quick shout out. I think Jamarcus Ingram looked legitimately good and looks like a future Cam Lewis special teams guy. And that for a lot of teams, I think he would have got the run to make it, but we just have 11 better defensive backs. Yeah. I think Jamarcus Ingram has a chance to be a back of the roster NFL caliber guy, and I was kind of happy they got him back. I think there's a chance he could contribute in the future. I don't see a future starter, but I think he's a guy who, as things open up here, I think he's more similar to a Seren Neal Cam Lewis hybrid kind of slot, kind of safety. They play him a lot at outside corner, but I think he has some potential for special teams and some of that overhang role.
Honestly, I would have been more this part of the roster. I would have been better off with taking Ingram on the 53 and trying to get Austin back. And keeping those guys. The Cam Lewis thing feels like it's set sail. Like I know what that is, and I feel like you have maybe a bigger
limited
ceiling.
Limited ceiling.
I think Ingram maybe has more of a ceiling and that
much bigger frame. He's a bigger athlete, and then you get in another good size athlete in Austin to keep in that sort of development practice squad level is what I would have done. But this team again, they're way more in on Cam Lewis than I've been this whole time, and he is that Dean Marlowe. He just sticks around. He's that roster cockroach now. Yeah. No, you're not wrong. Jamarcus Ingram 6'2", like he's a big boy. He can play. I think he's got a future on special teams. Again, I don't think he's some hidden superstar, but I think he can play in the league.
Okay.
And then obviously we knew there was no mystery with our specialists: Tyler Bass kicking, Sam Martin punting, and Reid Ferguson snapping. God bless Reid Ferguson hanging out,
grilling meat all day,
and really good on him to lean into it, having fun. He did the Leonardo DiCaprio from Wolf of Wall Street, I ain't leaving video coming back, even like had his face over top of it. I thought it was funny that he leaned into it. And, some guys I think would be almost like insecure or uncomfortable with that. I think I was really glad. I tried to make a big deal out of it yesterday. I was glad the way Sal did it. Like, this happens because he's willing to do that. There are long snappers in the NFL with longer term deals that do have a little bit of signing bonus or different things like that. They pay Reid a tiny bit more than the minimum in his salary. He does this because he wants to help the team. And that, again, long snappers don't have leverage. He probably couldn't pound his feet and say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'll go look somewhere else. He doesn't. So it's not like I'm saying he's some benevolent, amazing person who did this thing, but I think it's awesome that he leans into it and does that in this way and doesn't push for a contract that doesn't feel more threatening or uncomfortable for him. I think it's really cool that he does that with the team and that he even had fun with it with the announcement today.
Yeah, and Bean did too in his press conference. And so I think they appreciate it. This goes back to all the stuff that people made fun of Sean McDermott and Brandon Bean for all these years of all the DNA and all the process and all that. Reid is it, and he's perfect fit for them. And when they need a guy to do something, they know they can ask him, and he's going to have that contract perfectly in line for it and be the team player and come in and do his job. That's what the guys they want.
And I'll ask everybody to do this. Tell me the last time you worried about a snap in a game.
Right.
Tell me the last time you remember a wobbly, bad, over the head.
When Reid Ferguson got hurt.
Yes, correct. Literally, like when Reid got hurt, like
a couple of years back here, he got hurt in the off season or whatever.
I don't know how you can be like the best long snapper, or I don't know how that works. I don't know how like you can be better. But the only thing I care about is I never want to worry about it ever. Right. And with Reid, I never have to worry about it ever. The ball is there on time, crisp and perfect every single time. He's exactly what I want. I'm happy he's here.
For sure.
All right. So we talked for an hour and 12 minutes about the roster. We actually had a couple of the things we were considering doing tonight, but we will spare everybody here. But before we take off, there is something cool coming up here. Obviously, I think a lot of people are going to take a little bit of a content break over Labor Day weekend. I hope everybody enjoys some time. It's kind of that last hurrah of summer. A lot of parties going on, a lot of barbecues. Well, the coming up 2 weeks after that, there is going to be a really fun set up with the block party going on in Buffalo. There's a ton of really cool things that we're going to be doing to be able to come hang out with you. Aaron and I are going to be there. We're going to be joined with our host, Leftern, who is our sponsor for the preview shows all season long. Going to be going through hosting that block party, all kinds of stuff with like Macy's Pizza and a lot of different food vendors, different cool stuff all out there. If you want to come and just talk about this Bills team, have a good time, say hi to Aaron and I. We're going to be doing a live show there. You can come ask questions that we'll answer live on the show, but it's going to be that Saturday before the home opener, Saturday, September 16th, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. All kinds of cool vendors, lots of fun stuff, and I know Aaron and I are both looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to get out there. Tons of merch going to be there. I know 26 shirts is going to be there, so I know you're going to probably lose some money on the way back home.
It's going to cost me money to go do this.
Buff on Weck. Can't wait to see their stuff always out there. There's going to be a bunch of people. Oxford Pennant. I know that might be the one. I might be able to get my wife to agree to let me buy some stuff because Oxford Pennant looks nice. That's the stuff that like I can hang up in.
I have one right there, an Oxford Pennant, and they are very nice.
Yeah,
it's like that old school college 1920s look that they do some really cool stuff.
They really do. It's a good look. And Left Turn has a great look, and they're going to have some specific stuff just for this, a release just for this. So make sure that you come down, check out all the vendors, support Buffalo business, and come and interact with Bills fans. I think there's going to be a lot of hype going into that game, coming off a win versus the Jets, hopefully going into week 2 here. And we can talk about it. We'll be doing that podcast, like you said, having some great guests. I'm really excited to talk to a bunch of people here. Dude, like the regular season's here. We've been talking about this party here for a while, and now I'm flipping the calendar, and it's coming right up. So excited. I missed you this year too in training. I didn't even get to see you this summer in training camp, so gonna get to see you and hang out, and looking forward to hanging out with you and Bills fans and enjoying the atmosphere there.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. I'm really excited. It will be nice to see you and your smiling face.
Thanks, man.
One last thing here before you go. There's a ton of you guys in here watching live with us. Press that like button on the way out. That's the way to be able to tell everybody. It's how the internet works nowadays. That's the way that you do this, kind of word of mouth. That's how you make a referral or a reference, is by pressing that like button. And I'm going to make one other surprise announcement here. I'm really excited. We're going to have a new show on Cover One. A lot of you guys remember Marlon Kerner, who was a 3rd-round pick from the Bills back in the 90s, was also a 4-year starter and captain at the University of Ohio State, who is Aaron's favorite college as well.
I love Ohio State wide receivers.
So he and Josh from our show, If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo, are starting a new college football podcast. It is called What Happens on Saturday. Obviously, Marlon is passionate about the Ohio State football team. He will talk about them, bring on former teammates, guys in the pros. He talked about, Eddie George was one of his teammates and is the coach at Tennessee State and playing a game this weekend for their first Division I game. He was actually high school and childhood friends with Terry Glenn and played together in high school and then played together at Ohio State. Just a lot of really fun stories. And honestly, I was very compelled. I did kind of a dry run with them listening. Marlon is an awesome storyteller and is really, really fun. He is super passionate about college football. He's obviously very proud of his pro football, experience and accomplishments, but a super passionate college football fan, going to be breaking down recruiting, NIL, the transfer portal, the college football playoff system and reactions to those. And I think it's actually got a chance to be a lot of fun. So something new for us and something I think is going to be a lot of fun to be able to go check out. So something that I think their debut show is coming on Friday. You guys will see that on the feed along with Chris Chowis and a lot of our stuff over on our fantasy and gambling channel. We're not going to branch out into some college football and something fun there. Daryl.
So my guy, Daryl.
I want to give, so this is for Aaron and Daryl and others like him. So Josh, who is Marlon's co-host, hates Ohio State and very openly hates Ohio State during the show and gives Marlon a hard time talking about different things. So it's a fun dynamic and they have a good time with it. It's going to be a good time.
For Daryl and for others that are like me, I do the graphics for Cover One, and so I was asked to specifically use the Ohio State colors for this logo and all their branding, all their background and everything, which I did. I obliged, but I gave Greg and also a maize and blue version of the logo to give to him first and say, like, Aaron, refuse to do the Ohio State colors. This is the logo that you get, and so that went over well. But now I'm working on a bet with Marlon where that he's going to have to run those logos if Michigan wins, and that I might have to go get some Ohio State merch. He better send me some merch. That will be the deal I make.
I saw his background. I saw his background stuff. He's got plenty.
He's got a hat or something. He's got plenty. Yeah.
But it's going to be a good time. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. And again, Marlon is an awesome storyteller and really interesting. And obviously he's going to talk about some of his experience with the Buffalo Bills and as a former Bills player. Some different former Buffalo Bills players will be joining, talking about, he'll bring on a former Iowa Hawkeye when it's the game for the Buckeyes and the Hawkeyes. I'll bring on a former Penn State player, talk about playing in Happy Valley. I think it's going to be a good time, and you guys will enjoy it. All right, guys, that's it. That's going to do it for our show this week. Aaron, anything else? Next week, we're going to have Connor Rogers on, breaking down, previewing Monday Night Football.
I'm so excited for Connor. Low key, I know I say this about a lot of guests. This guy's my favorite guest. He's straight up one of my favorite guests that we have on this show for matchup shows. I honestly can't think of another Jets fan that I actually like. There's one other Jet fan that I like in my life. The rest of them, not really into him. I'm excited to have him on for this matchup too. Like, talk about prime time right out of the gate. This is going to be a big one. I can't wait to talk to him, dude. I can't remember, I get excited for seasons, but I don't know the last time I was this excited going in, especially I made the rounds, Greg, on the Good Morning Footballs, the Cowherds. I even made myself listen to the Nick Wrights and the Cowherds and what they're just the general consensus. And the sleeping on the Buffalo Bills is so awesome.
So far under the radar. It's great.
It's so good for Sean McDermott and all these guys to just build those Patriot made up. Nobody believes in us. The Chiefs last year saying, hey, nobody picked us to win the Super Bowl. So that meant nobody believed in us. They're going to make this up. And I love every single minute. I'm soaking it up. I can't wait to see how it starts.
So one last thing, this weekend on Saturday, September 2nd at 8 o'clock, some of the guys on playback are going to be doing Josh's first game at Wyoming. So another thing to check out. A lot of fun college football games going on this season, and we're going to be bringing back Josh Allen's first career college game at Wyoming. So it's more fun to be able to watch Chris Kepner, some of the other guys joining him. I know Adam and a lot of the others, maybe Anthony jumping on there with him, having a good time. He'll share the link for it here. But that's going to do it for us tonight. The chat was awesome as always. You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate you. It's been a lot of fun. Make sure you're checking out that show, the interview with Aaron Schatz tomorrow. Come back with us next week for Connor Rogers, and then Aaron and I will be back for all of our post-game shows sponsored by West Her. We can't wait to kick that off Monday night, September 11th. It's going to be so much fun. But on behalf of our awesome producer, Chris Kepner, my co-host Aaron Quinn, I'm Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.